In this video, I'm going to talk about sensitivity labels. Now, sensitivity labels is a way that we can use specific labels that users themselves control to help provide guidance or insights to those who are seeing the document in terms of what they can or cannot do with a document. You know, for example, if it's a public document, share away, don't have to ask anyone. If it's general commercial, then we just need to concern, is it, is it going to the right people or not the right people? Are these people allowed to go and see that? And it just basically don't share client data with another client, right? That's the general sort of rules there. Then we go into confidential and then highly confidential. When we get into those layers, then we can start putting things like watermarks and other restrictions to even deny access should you don't comply to a certain set of rules. For example, we can use conditional access to block people's ability to access highly confidential documents if they're outside of a particular country or region. We're based in Australia, so anyone outside of Australia would be denied access to highly confidential documents, as an example. We can even set or remove encryption to ensure that even if that file is somehow downloaded and exfiltrated via a USB key, for example, and sent to a competitor, that competitor can't open it because they're not on the list of people who are allowed to access it. When that file is trying to be accessed, it calls home to Microsoft to ask, can this person have access? The system will say no, and an alert will be raised to say that someone unauthorized is trying to access your document. So it's a really strong way to control this stuff. Okay. So what does this look like? Well, quite simply, we're going to go to the compliance portal. It's called Microsoft Purview, but it's the compliance portal. So if you go into the admin center, find the compliance portal, this is where you want to go. Now, the information we're looking for is information protection. We go down here to overview, and it's going to tell us a bunch of different things. And we can start creating labels and all that sort of stuff as well. And there's opportunities later on that we're going to come back, and we can also protect PDF files. That's for a later point. So I'm going to go start creating some labels. And there's a series of standard labels. You see that I've created a personal one here already, but there's a series of additional labels. Now, the default ones that Microsoft have put together for us are quite simple. We've got personal, public, general, confidential. We ignore these sub ones because they just become too complicated for people to work out. And then highly confidential. And each one of those is fairly self-explanatory within the descriptions, but there's an actual business description here as well. So when we go and create these labels, we put the description in to allow people to see what's going on. Now, the labeling system also has the ability to support color codes. Some apps support those color codes, some don't. That can give you other indications of how sensitive this information is. So we use things like blue for personal, green for public, orange for general, and it gets darker and darker shades of red towards the highly confidential. If it's red, you really don't want to share that stuff, okay? So I'm just going to pull this one out the side. So we're over here. I'm going to create a new label. Now we're going to take this information from the document. So we're just going to put public here, public again. We're going to leave that at highest. That's fine. The description, that was in the description field. And for the most part, the rest of the screens are going to be default, right? So we're going to pick green because this is public. It's good to go. Don't stress about it. So we're going to go next. All these we're going to leave as standard. Now, you'll see that groups and sites are turned off for the moment. There is another more complicated process. It involves PowerShell and all that sort of stuff to turn it on. It is worth doing, but it takes up to 24 to 48 hours for that information to go through. That is another video that we'll do elsewhere, and there's a whole bunch of steps you need to go through to make that happen. For the moment, we'll ignore it. These ones here allow you to turn on those watermarks and the encryption. We're going to leave those alone. Same as auto labeling, we're going to leave those ones alone because we don't want to automatically label stuff. And then also these data protection. So this is where you can put that conditional access. You can do the control whether or not it can be reshared or anything for the location. Again, leave it alone. Then we come back to all of these settings, and then what we do is just make sure that it matches with what we've pretty much got here. Excellent. And I'll put a link to that particular page elsewhere. So we go create label, and after a few moments, it will create the label. Right, there we go. Then we can publish this label, automatically apply all of that sort of stuff. Nope, we're done. Now we can do, using PowerShell for additional label settings, for example, multilingual and all of that sort of stuff as well. And you'll see here that the priority is, going on down, which is why we like starting with, starting at the top, personal, and working our way down, so we don't have to change the order. I'm going to go through and quickly create the others. I'm going to go general. Orange. Next. Leave this all the default. Leave this all the default. Leave this all the default. And so on and so forth. Create label. 2 more to go. We've got confidential. Confidential. All right, so now this is the one where we're going to do highly confidential. So this one here is a little bit different. Highly confidential, we do want to put some watermarks in there. All right, so this is for very sensitive information. We're not going to do encryption because that's going to get complicated. And it pretty much a highly confidential is it can cause damage to your business if it's shared with the wrong people, which is why it's highly confidential. Now we're going to leave this the same, but in here, we're going to put some content marking. All right. When we do that, when we click on next, it allows us to turn on that content marketing. And what we're saying here is that we want to put on highly confidential watermark. I'm going to put a footer in there. We're going to put a watermark. So we're going to go with highly confidential. Font size, we're probably going to go to 32. Black, so we'll make it black. We'll put it diagonal. And it's going to go in as a watermark in behind a Word document, PowerPoint document, or any other type of document that's created. So it can have this big, highly confidential in black lettering in the background there. Now you can pick any other color if you want. We could go red if you want to really have it stand out, but we're just going to leave it as black for the moment. I'm going to save that. You can add headers or footers if that's more appropriate, but I like the big diagonal watermark. Can't miss it. Etc. So we're not going to do auto labeling, and we're not going to do any of this restrictions for sharing, right? We can come back and change this stuff later. I'm going to create the label. Right. So now we have all our labels. What we want to do, so from lowest to highest, this is the highest level label, that's the lowest. And so that's the order they're going to appear when you go and pick them in the Office 365 applications. So I'm going to publish these labels. So I'm going to see which ones we want to publish. Well, we want to publish all of them. Nice and easy. Assigned to admin units. We don't have an E5 license, so it's just full directory, etc. Users and groups. So we can actually set different labels for different business units. For the sake of this particular organization, we're just going to do it for everyone, and we can change that later. So you can go and change these publishing labels later. So here's some things that we can do. So one of the things you might want to do is, if someone's going to lower the label, so if it's highly confidential and they need to take it down to say just confidential, or you're in general, they need to provide some sort of justification. So that seems like a good idea. Let's turn that one on. We're not going to force people to label documents or emails. That will just cause problems. And same with Power BI. We're not going to do that. We may come back later. Now we can provide a custom help page, but we're not ready for that, so we're just going to leave that one alone. So we're just going to have simply just apply. So this is optional labeling, not forced, not mandated. We can turn that stuff on later. And if they do put a label on and they're going to reduce the label, they just have to put a reason of why. Okay, and we can also apply a default label to documents. Now, we're not going to put a default one on here, but generally speaking, I would choose general and then get people to say, well, actually, this is public or anything like that. The reason I'm not put a default label on is we're not ready to roll this out yet, and we don't want labels getting in the way and causing a bit of a pain for the organization, and we haven't turned on group labeling yet. So this is a good starting point. Same as for emails, are we going to put that there? Well, same, whatever the default we put for documents, we'll put the default for emails. And email inherits the highest priority labels from attachments. So the email inherits that highest priority. So we're going to say and give people the option here. So we're just going to have a recommendation to say that you've put a highly confidential document in here. You should label the email as highly confidential as well. So we're just going to start with this. This is more about an education process. So we're giving the users as much control as possible. Same as meetings and calendar events, we're not going to require that, and we're going to set the default for none. We can't actually change this because we don't have Teams Premium license. Again, for the default Power BI, we're not going to set that. We're just going to leave this as is. All right. I'm just going to call this default policy as a good starting point. So now that's made and published available. Over the next 24 hours, this will start to become available to users, and they'll start seeing this showing up in Word, in emails and everything else. It's going to create a little bit of confusion to start with, which is why we've set the policies as optional. Great. So now we've got those particular labels out, and you can see the label policies themselves. So if we refresh this, there's that default policy, and we can put different policies for different groups and different requirements. For example, you might have a team that works in legal, and you might want to set a different policy where most of their content is mandated as confidential. Okay, that's the default policy. If they need to reduce the settings, then we can control that. Same policies, and it's just done on group memberships. So you need to set up your groups or your teams, and you can re-leverage that. Wow. That was a lot in just under 15 minutes. So there's a lot of content in there around labels and sensitivity labels. This is just the starter, the tip of the iceberg. Once you start digging into labels and can start to get an idea of how labels work, then you can start making changes. But if you start here at this base level, you can then start to understand how labels can be used. As I said, there was a thing that I talked about around setting up, allowing for groups, and we haven't set those particular ones there. And that's something that we would want to go and enable. And I'll just quickly switch back and show you what I mean. When you're in here, you'll see that labels and sensitivity labels and privacy and access controls for Teams, SharePoint sites, and Microsoft groups. To do this, you must complete these steps first, right? There's a long-winded process around labels, and if you're curious, go and have a look at that. You're going to have to delve into PowerShell and other things. So if you're not familiar with that, it's going to be a bit more technical. But this is a great place to start. And the reason that these groups are useful is that the default labels for your documents can be defined at the group layer, meaning that any file uploaded into that team or SharePoint group automatically inherit the labels that you defined for that team. Anyway, that's a story for another day. I hope you found that helpful. Please go and explore sensitivity labels. These are really, really useful things for managing and controlling your data and getting a sense of what you can and cannot share, especially if your organization deals with sensitive information or personally identifiable information. Next things we can use these labels for is starting to develop our data loss prevention policies to stop this information leaking out and prevent people from sending highly sensitive information via insecure mechanism. Hey, email. Got it? Anyway, hope you found that useful. Like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments.